Alright, here we go. First thing you want to do, make sure we're going to use both parts of the sketchbook. Alright, go ahead and open it up pretty wide. Now, unlike the tutorial we did last time, I would like you to move your horizon line to the bottom third of the page. Alright, because we're going to spend this class period working on a 2-point city. Alright, so we need to be able to lift the buildings up. So I'm going to go ahead and start my horizon line in the bottom third of the picture plane. Now, as before, I'm going to put 2 vanishing points, one on the left and one on the right. And to stay consistent, I'm going to go ahead and make the left one A and the right one B. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start with my diamond. And unlike the last one where we put the vertical line here, I'm going to move mine over because I want the left-hand side to have a longer alleyway. Alright, so I'm going to come here. Mine looks about a little under 9 inches, so I'm going to make that little dash. Then I will make my straight line. Alright, now I used the ruler just to kind of eyeball. That's why it says it's about 9. Alright, so really if you just look at where my spine is, if you come over about 2 fingers width, you should be fine. So now I'm going to make my vertical line. And then as we did with the boxes in the last tutorial, let's go ahead and play connect the dots. So there I've connected the bottom to that straight line. Now I'm connecting the bottom to the B vanishing point. Can you repeat that? Oh, mine said 9, but your sketchbook's a little smaller than mine. Then I'll connect the top to the beam, and then I'll go on up and connect the top over to the A. Now the diamond should look a lot different from the last one, just because A, we're lower to the bottom. Alright, but we're also not using as much space between the horizon line and the bottom of that diamond. So we really have more space at the top. Now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and throw in the edges of this first building, making sure that the top and bottom are connected. Make sure you're putting that ruler at the edge of the paper, then drawing that line straight down. Now, I do want you to kind of start realizing this in your brain, what this is going to be. This is like if you're standing on the corner of a street waiting for a bus. Alright, you can look to your right and you would have an alleyway or a street. You look to the left, it'll be the same thing. Now, let's go ahead and start working on the bottom part of our drawing. We're going to set the sidewalk in first. Now, what we want to do, we don't want to go directly below this diagonal. We would like to be a little to the right. Watch my pencil. A little to the right. And then we're going to drop down toward the bottom of the page. Alright? So I'm going to be roughly right here. Now, at this point, just as I did the diamond, I'm going to connect that to our vanishing point and then to our B vanishing point on the other side. Now, if you remember from our 1-point city, alright, you have the top of the sidewalk, and that's what this is. Then you're going to need to have a step up from the road. Alright, so to get that, what I want to do is here on the, where I put that original dot, Make sure my ruler is nice and straight. And I'm going to put that little itty bitty line there at the bottom. Then I'm going to take my trusty ruler. I'm going to connect back to the vanishing point. Now, since I am doing this with a studio audience, I'm going to give them a couple of seconds to get caught up with me. Alright, but what we have the one building started, still the guidelines in, we haven't erased anything, and then we started work on the sidewalk. Alright, both of these are basically the same concepts, just that the building is much taller and the sidewalk is a lot skinnier and longer. Now, as they're working, I'm going to throw in a couple of lines for the sidewalk. Now, we've been doing an in-class assignment where that we know that if things go in the distance further, all right, they get lesser in value, but they also get smaller together as far as increments. All right, so here's, I'm just putting these vertical lines in all the way back to the vanishing point. Then I'll do the same concept on the left-hand side. I'm going to start the lines wide at first. Then as I move down the street, they're going to get closer and closer together until the point where they basically just start disappearing because they're too far away to completely be recognized. Okay, now here comes the more daunting part of a two-point perspective. All right, knowing how to create depth in our picture. All right, now the first thing you want to do is that you got to know the rules that if you're on the A side, to create depth, you got to connect it to the B vanishing point. Now, I am on the A side here. I'm going to take the top. I'm going to connect to the opposite vanishing point. So I'm going to lightly draw a little bit because I know I don't need every single bit of that. And then I'm going to repeat that process down toward the vanishing point. So I'm going to go here, connect across, raise my ruler, check quickly to make sure I'm connected to the vanishing point. And I'm going to follow that all the way down the page. So you can start seeing that you have this vertical, but now unlike one point where it just went straight across the page, now the top of the sidewalk connects across to the opposite vanishing point. I'll do a couple more because I still have them denoted toward the vanishing point. Bam. Now, the other side though, when I go to the B, I'm going to start back to the vanishing point because it's going to get a little tricky as I come forward. So I'll go ahead and get this. Slide my line down. Get that one. Throw in that one as well. Now here's where the tricky part happens. Alright, notice that I've got this weird intersection of my concrete. This one comes over here, that one goes almost over there, so you may not have to use this line, or you may have to do some altering so that this really becomes almost the end of the piece. Alright, so at this point you can change this up a little bit. You can bring that line right there, and then here you would erase out that little extra information, just making this corner a solid diamond as opposed to having weird blocks of concrete. Now, while we got a couple of seconds, I want you to go ahead, starting with both the B vanishing point and the A, and I want you just to lightly shade in a horizontal fashion. Now, as you start coming out of that vanishing point though, I want you to gradually tilt your pencil to where instead of going side to side, you're going to gradually increase the shading as it comes out to the end of the street. So it starts horizontal back here, then as you start coming down, gradually tilt how you're shading it so that it's guiding with the vanishing point.
Did he tell you guys what the side of cable was? That's what he said.
Okay, so do the same thing the other side. Start here. Now, I am going to ask that you do not cross this plane as you shade. Alright, so on the A side, just like I did the B side, don't go all the way across. Don't try to fill up the rest of the page. Alright, use a little bit of your spatial intelligence. Alright, try not to cross over that very much. But do know as you come out of that vanishing point, switch and let the values slant as it comes forward. Now, as the studio class is shading in the bottom, I quickly went ahead and put in the next box. Now remember, just like in the perspective from last tutorial, you have the tall line first. Alright, we broke the original diamond. Alright, then you connect to the same side vanishing point. And that's what I did here, same side vanishing point. Then you add in the back end of the building. Alright, so that's step 1, 2, 3. Now steps 4, you got to create depth. So you take that tall line and you connect across, both at the bottom and at the top. Alright, but instead of drawing all the way across, you draw until you hit the line of that center building. Now for my next set of buildings, alright, I'm still going to stay on the A side, but I'm not going to make it taller, I'm actually going to make it shorter so you can see how that works. Alright, so instead of going up to the original diamond and breaking it, I'm going to be inside that building, or inside that block. So I got the taller line, connect to the vanishing point, and then where I'm going to stop it, make sure I make a good vertical line. Now at this point, since I do have a decent amount of space between my second building and my third, all right, you're going to be able to see a little bit more of the alleyway of that building. Now, so that I don't get superly overly confused, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of cleaning up. I do not at this point need all that top space above that small building. I am going to go ahead and where I don't need the horizon line, I'm going to go ahead and pull that line out. Now please know your erasers are they're finite objects. So as you erase, you don't need to sit here and go over the page. Alright, what you do need is to go in here and just do a little bit right around where the graphite's supposed to be. Alright, you just got to pull it out. Don't need to sit there with lots and lots of work. Just lightly take the color back off the page. Now, while we are on this subject of cleaning up, let's go ahead and denote a little bit of the alleyways by doing a diagonal or a parallel shading. It's not technically hatching because we're not lifting the pencil every time. We're just going to diagonally shade this section in. Now, I do want to make sure that the ground is slightly darker than everything else. So that little section right there, I am going to darken in. Alright, so it's a good place to stop for a second. We will catch up on the next part.